Would you agree that FAFSA is one of the most important documents that a student fills out when trying to determine their college path?
Absolutely. As a parent, I can tell you I've experienced the old system and the new system, and I do believe FAFSA is a very important document. That's
Great. And that leads me to my second question. As a parent, you mentioned your son and daughter. As you're planning for your child, you're very curious about what financial aid will be available for your child. So you would think it would be important for parents as well. Okay. As a former higher education administrator myself, I know how important it is that we receive that FAFSA data in a timely manner. So you would also agree that for higher education administrators, as they're planning how many sections they're going to have, how many professors are needed for each section, that also would be very important for them as well.
Absolutely. I talk to financial aid administrators daily. I spoke to one in person yesterday, and I understand the situation that they're in, and we're working with them to make sure we can support them.
So as you know where I'm going with this, it's no secret that the rollout of the new FAFSA has been an absolute disaster. Multiple delays, technical issues, long processing times, and now incorrect data supplied to universities. So my question begins with this. At what point did you realize there were going to be some real problems getting the FAFSA rolled out on time, and when did you know the department was not going to meet the traditional FAFSA deadlines?
Thank you. I understand the challenges that our students, our families, our universities, financial aid administrators are facing. There's nothing more important right now at the Department of Education. We're working on this around the clock because we want to make sure our students have information that they need to make informed decisions. And let me tell you, Congresswoman, 30 years ago when I was 17 and I was going to fill out the FAFSA, I knew the burden that it would put on my parents, and it was too much.
Yeah.
I never filled it out. Yeah. We need to move forward to a better system, but we need to do it in a way that gives the students the information in a timely way.
Sure. So it's my understanding that the FSA has around 1,400 career staff, known as FTEs. I read on your website that the office oversees or handles the federal student loan programs, including the FAFSA, student loan repayment, and student loan forgiveness. Is that correct, 1,400?
I can verify that with you, but that sounds about right.
Great. Of those 1,400 employees, how many focus on FAFSA implementation, and how many of those FTEs have been focusing on the $144 billion of student loan forgiveness, which your department has rolled out over several tranches?
So I can get more specific information to you because you're asking very specific, the number of employees, but I can tell you the FSA office is responsible for also bringing 28 million people back into repayment. We changed contracts to make the process better for students. So we're moving contracts for us to oversee those programs in addition to FAFSA. So it's not that I don't want you to think that they're not doing FAFSA because they're working on something else. FAFSA has been a priority since day one when we got into these positions, and it will continue to be a priority until we deliver for these students.
It's my understanding that it's been an absolute nightmare. I hear from university administrators all the time. This isn't a partisan issue. This is something that is affecting higher education as a whole. It's affecting parents, students, and at a time when I hear from my constituents, industry leaders, that we are facing one of the worst workforce shortages in history, that we shouldn't be creating a deterrent for our students to go into higher education so that we can answer that workforce shortage that we have. And so I'm concerned that you didn't pull employees away from working on loan repayment for people who have already gone to college. At what point did you start prioritizing those people who have already finished their college degree from making sure that we can get a steady workforce, prioritizing students to go into college?
As I said earlier, it's not either or. We've been working on FAFSA since we got here to the department, and I agree with you. Part of this system is over 40 years old, and it needs overhaul. We expect over 650,000 more students to be eligible for federal aid, which is great for our workforce, great for our country. We expect 1.7 million more students to get top aid. Okay, a total of 7.1 million students getting aid with this new system. And because it's 20 minutes, we expect the completion rates in this country to go up. We've been satisfied, or we've normalized 60% completion rates, 70%. We have to do better for our students, and this better FAFSA will get us there. but I do empathize with the challenges and the frustrations that folks are feeling. We need to do better, and we're gonna get better. And I encourage students who are listening to go to studentaid.gov and fill it out. If you fill it out today, by Friday, this information will be in the schools.
I'm happy to hear that. I hope this debacle never happens again. I hope that you will have a plan in place. The American people want to see you focused on getting students into the classroom, not repaying loans for people who have already been there. Thank you. I yield back. Mr. Secretary, in the 2 years prior to my time in office, Congress provided almost $200 billion through the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplement Appropriations Act, and the American Rescue Plan for K through 12. Those dollars were to be used to improve online learning capability, to sanitize schools with special equipment, to purchase PPE, and to address learning loss caused by school closures. Do you believe that this funding provided for K through 12 schools was appropriately spent?
Yes, I do.
Okay. While some of that funding may have been appropriately spent, we saw misuse of funds too, providing new synthetic turf for football stadiums, baseball field drainage improvements, and brand new weight rooms. Secretary, it's been between 3 to 4 years since these 3 bills passed, and the funds are set to expire in September. Have the schools spent all of their funding to date?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I was a Commissioner of Education in Connecticut during those years, and I recall the important efforts that were taken to provide PPEs and to ensure maintenance of air handling systems that, to be very frank with you, for decades have been, deferred maintenance. So I do know those dollars were used to safely reopen our schools quickly. I know in Connecticut, for example, we focused on that and we relied on those dollars. We know that 99.6% of CARES ESSER has been used. CARISA ESSER, 99%. 68% of the current $130 billion of the American Rescue Plan dollars have been used, with the drawdown date coming up soon. And then, while you didn't ask that, I would want to share also, we have homeless children and youth dollars provided by Congress, and 44% of those dollars have been drawn down. And we're working closely with states to continue to draw them down.
I want to get to my point. I looked on your website this morning. Louisiana still has only spent 70% of the total that they were awarded during the pandemic. That's concerning to me because in your budget, you proposed a new $8 billion mandatory program labeled the Academic Acceleration and Achievement Grants. The justification for this specifically labels this new program as a way for the nation's school to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, and specifically addresses learning loss due to COVID. Why should we appropriate more money for this program, this mandatory program, when we haven't already spent the money that was given during the pandemic for learning loss specifically?
Thank you. And I say this respectfully, but there are many students in Louisiana and other states that are reading well below the level. So those dollars are critically important to sustain efforts of tutoring, summer school programming. And 70% in Louisiana is about average. I said the country's average is 68% ESSER drawdown. But if you talk to any school principal, administrator, superintendent, board member, they'll tell you, because I've been speaking to them, those dollars are being used and they expect them to be drawn down. They're for social workers, reading teachers, additional after-school programs. So they are obligated dollars. They just haven't been drawn down because the work hasn't been performed. But they're also telling you in Louisiana and other places that they're concerned when this ARP dollar sunsets, the needs of the students are still great. So I encourage you to support the budget and the $8 billion for tutoring, for additional reading support, and summer programming.
Thank you. I've gone over my time, but I would just expect us to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. I don't believe in appropriating more funds when we haven't already spent the funds that we are already sent. Thank you. I yield back.